welcome to the Thomas Tellman channel, where we discuss all things related to the good, the bad, and the ugly about workplace culture, and specifically for professional services, and even more specifically for law firms. And today I have the pleasure of interviewing and meeting Jay Sahota, who was previously the equity partner, I believe, for Jarmans, and now you have decided to go solo and start your own consultancy business, right?
Yes, I have. Yeah, very exciting.
Good stuff. And I would say, because I also go into law firms as well, and what I realize is that if there is a business problem, then invariably there's a people problem.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that, Jay?
Often, yes. I think if you look at a law firm in particular, well, let's start by saying law firms consume money like no other business does. I mean, it's one thing even my son said to me recently. So he said, how is it that law firms can have really good turnover and then their profit really isn't very good, and then their cash flow is, excuse my French, shite? And that was my thumb,
That's all right.
which is true. So they consume cash. So cash, I always used to say when I was running law firms, cash sits on this shoulder, people sit on that shoulder.
Right.
They are interrelated, and you're right. Everything is based on people and cash. They're the foundations of a law firm. If they're not working in tandem properly at the same time,
Yeah,
and working well as they should be, then everything else goes to pot, basically. So you're right. People are very important, cash obviously, but if you've got the right people doing the right things in the right way, you should be able to generate enough cash anyway. So you're spot on.
sure. Ah, good. And so with that in mind, what would you say are the most common inefficiencies that you've seen in firms now as a consultant? And what have you done to try and address those things?
Very good question, actually. I see lots of inefficiencies in law firms. And the reason why is that, you know this from what you do with people, firms often don't take the time to sit down and work out what they're inefficient at. So if somebody would sit down and make a list and have the time to do that, that would be the first step in the exercise. Often they're so busy, inverted commas, I'll come back to that, but they don't often do that. So I take them back to basics, and I look at, I've got an acronym, TPDO, teamwork, prioritization, delegation, organization.
Right.
So make sure you're working properly as a team so that you're sharing work. If you're not busy enough, you tell other people. You share risk and workload and everything with other people. Prioritization, make sure you prioritize the work. Sounds trite, doesn't it? But it's true. The work that is urgent so that clients are updated. You're not leaving files lingering. You know what to work on. You're properly organized in that respect. Delegation, I see, and this is one particular source of inefficiency where I see that firms, if say partners are holding on to work, it's not being passed down to juniors, and therefore there's natural inefficiency. The work isn't being spread through people properly, and you've got files languishing and sitting there and not worked on. Clients are peed off, or they're focusing on a particular remit of files, or they're lightly touching everything, which I'll come back onto in a minute, and you don't want that at all. And obviously being organized is really important. So I see a lack of organization in firms where they just don't know what they're doing, why they're doing. They're scrabbling around. I call it the BAF, blue ass fly syndrome.
Right, okay.
Where they're running around from pillar to post, they don't know what's going on, and often you find that the wrong people are doing the wrong jobs. And I've got a mantra that you've got to fill. I see people as vessels, good vessels. I don't mean that in an impersonal way, but you've got to fill those vessels with enough water, not too much, but the right sort of water, so that people are doing the right jobs in the right way, and they're happy doing those jobs to make sure that everything flows efficiently. And again, as you know, doing what you do, you start doing that by, proper job descriptions. Do people know what they're doing? Are they busy enough? Are they not? Are they too busy? Could they have more work? Could they have less work? Are they wasting time? Are they not wasting time? Do they know how to use their systems? Are they being efficient using that mantra I just delineated now, TPDO? And I advocate, coming back to your original question, to avoid this issue of wasted time, because most of it's wasted time on processes, systems that people shouldn't be doing in the first place.
Right.
If people just sat down and did a time and motion analysis, and what I mean by that is, for a week, all staff, and most of my clients, when I go and do my workshops, they've started doing this now. For a week, analyze all your activities and break them down into microcosms every day, and you will be as amazed at the results, because you'll find you're losing time photocopying or licking stamps or bonking this particular bit of the machine when you should be doing another bit, and somebody else could be doing it. And it comes back to my TPDO. So if you work out what you're doing during the day and what you're being inefficient at, you can improve it. Whereas the mind is very clever. We tell ourselves, oh, it only took 3 minutes, whereas actually it took 15 minutes, but you didn't realize it did until you actually bloody look at it. So use that, look at your inefficiency, make a list of what you're doing during the day, make a list of what's causing you inefficiency and try and improve it, basically, rather than running around thinking it's going to improve by itself, because it won't.
So there's so much inefficiencies that are going on in firms. And of course, if you're spending so much time doing the things that aren't going to allow you to bill and make money, then you're losing money, right?
Yeah.
And what you mentioned there is really interesting. The acronym that you have there, and T for teams.
Yeah.
That is such a challenge, because people, it's not only is it difficult to get the right people into the organization, but then once they're there, you want to do the right things to motivate them, right, and keep them there. So have you seen any instances where teams, where managing partners are struggling to find that balance between doing the work and also managing the teams?
Always. I think almost in every, or not slagging off my clients all, but in almost some of my, don't get me wrong, some of my client firms do it fantastically and they're working really, really well. But I would say in many firms, the tasks aren't delineated properly, such that the senior partner can step back and look at, you need to be a bit like a hoverfly and look at helicopter motion and work out what's going on in the firm. And they don't do that. So they're trying to juggle their own fee earning and their managing and doing the work. And you can't do everything at the same time. So the big lesson I give to law firm owners is, if you're good at it, do it yourself. And if you've got the time for it, do it yourself, but often haven't got the time. Or find the next best person who can do it for you. You want people who are better than you around you, don't you? So if you're not great at managing your teams, get somebody who's great at managing teams, or step back, concentrate on just the management of the teams and the management of the firm, and then don't do any fee earning. I mean, when I was running my firms, I realized fairly early in that I ought not to be doing any fee earning, because it was, rather than me sitting there and trying to bill 100K a month on top of everything else and juggling around, why didn't I try and rainmake and manage my teams to encourage them to make more money?
There you go.
Bring in more work from networking, £1 million a year in the year before I sold my firm, and properly to make do even better, rather than trying to do everything all at the same time. It's knowing what your skills and abilities are and stepping back at the same time. I think that's really important.
That's an absolutely fabulous point that you make there, and I think that it requires internal reflection, putting egos to one side, thinking about what's best for the firm, for yourself, and doing the right thing, right? And so with that in mind, what key strategies would you recommend to law firms then that want to enhance revenue streams and maintain, whilst also improving client satisfaction? How can you do that?
There are lots. I mean, if we come back to your core point earlier, which is that, I mean, a lot of it's to do with economic pressure. So if we look at economic pressure versus client management versus making money, people think they're often at odds, but they're not. They sit within the same framework well together. I mean, clients want flexibility, choice, and transparency, really. And they want exceptional client care, but we want to make money out of them at the same time. And they can fit well together if you do it in the right way. So I talk about various strategies. I mean, as a global level, another acronym coming up, you'll like this, Andre. I used to say to law firm owners, think about BCDE as every day, and it should be forefront of mind. So billing, cash, debt, expenses. Billing, cash, debt, expenses. Just think about those all day, every day. And in terms of particular tips, I advocate for firms. I talk a lot about a "this is how we work" meeting. This is how we work, where right at the forefront of a matter, you say to a client, "This is how I work." You're either going to get on with the client or you're not. You know what the red flags are. You don't have to take every single client because they're busy anyway. And it's setting the boundaries of client care. It's a bit like a seesaw. If it tips too far one way or the other, you know that relationship isn't working. But the meeting's important so that clients know what is coming. They don't have unrealistic expectations, but they know what you can do for them in the time frame that you can do it for them. How they should pay, when they should pay, how they interact with you, who's going to do the work, when you're going to update them, all that sort of, how you're going to charge them, etc., etc. So it's a lovely way of combining exceptional client care and, sounds horrible, and I don't mean it rudely, but keeping clients in their box such that you're providing the care, but within your own terms, so that you can provide the best care. You don't want clients chasing you 20 times a day. You want to tell them, how you want to work with them, and vice versa. So you get on an equilibrium, and they have no surprises about your billing, etc., etc. So it works really, really well. So that's the first thing. I also talk about a magic triangle, which I won't give too much away about, because people need to sign up for my workshops. But it's a triangle. It's funny. I just had an email from a client now. He said to me, and exact words, he said, "Not an hour goes by when we don't talk about your triangle." Right. So it's central to the management of billing and money in a law firm, and it's very simple. Think of the 3 points of a triangle. Estimates, sorry, I should start getting it right. I've done it enough. I should know, shouldn't I, really? Updates, estimates, money's on account. Updates, estimates, money's on account. You tell the client what you've done, what you're going to do, you embed value, you tie it in with an estimate for the next phase of work, and then you take the corresponding amount of money's on account. Usually, if it's fixed fees, it's a bit different. The client knows exactly where they stand. It helps your case works smoothly and flows smoothly. Sure. Clients know it's coming, no surprises, no debt. You bill them the amount that you said you're going to bill them. It works really well. Right. I also talk a lot about, and coming back to no surprises and keeping the revenue up, I talk a lot about getting your differentiators right with the client. So, why are you particularly good at what you're doing, and what are your niches in terms of your unique proposition to the client? And that helps you to pitch. Talk a lot about value, because clients shouldn't see price in isolation. It's value. Okay. So, sure. Who said, is it George Orwell, that famous quote, a cynical man knows the price of everything but the value of nothing. So it's your job to impart value to the client. So, and then they will understand, the right client will understand the price. The right client will pay the right price for the right piece of work, always. Sure. And if one of those doesn't work, then you know that something's awry somewhere. So embed value, another acronym. I talk about FFBV, fear, features, benefits, value. Again, I can't go into a huge amount of that, but tell the client what their pain points are, address the pain points, impart value, and then give them the price. That works really well in terms of getting your prices up. And importantly, more concrete wise, it's critical to get your scoping and estimating right. We've talked about the triangle, but what often happens in law firms, and I see this as one of the biggest sources of losing money in law firms, as well as discounting and all the other stuff that happens. They don't get the estimate right. They go overestimate. They bill the client. The client goes, "I'm not paying this." Or they don't scope the work properly in the first place. So again, they go over scope and then don't want to talk to the client about the extra cost. So get your estimating right. And I've got tools that I go through with clients to make sure that's done right. Get your scoping right. This is what we're going to do. This is what we're not going to do. Time and task, horizontal and vertical scope. Get that right together with all the other stuff I've spoken about. And you find that your revenues go up. Your clients aren't surprised. They're always happy. You're more comfortable doing what you're doing. You can talk to clients about money, and you're making more money easily at the end of the day. And
you can see with the various different acronyms that you put together, and the complexities of being able to really run a successful law firm, and and hence why it's so important that as managers that you are being able to spend time with your team to ensure that they understand the complexity. So, the decision that you made to step away from doing casework is brilliant. So you can focus on creating an environment where people can thrive, because it's not just the law that they're having to deal with. It's also understanding the business element of how a law firm runs, which I think many fall down on. Would you?
Yeah. It's severely lacking. I mean, and I don't mean this as any slight to lawyers at all, but we're not taught any of this, Andre, as we go through. We're taught how to do the law. Right. We're taught the nth degree how to do the bloody law. It's stuffed into every single orifice, but we're not taught how to be commercial, talk to clients about money, network, rainmake, be savvy with clients, think about caseloads and workload and how to make more money and upselling and cross-selling and all that stuff. Nobody sits us down and tells anybody that. And that's why I wanted to do what I'm doing now, because I wanted to fill that gap. Because I was training my staff and all this stuff, because I realized that everything is interlinked. You can't be a good, I think, people disagree with me, but I don't think you can be a good fee earner unless you understand commerciality. You can't understand commerciality unless you go out there and talk to people. And you're not going to get out there and talk to people unless you know how to do it in the first place, basically. So it's all interlinked.
Totally. And that's why I always say, if you've got a people problem, or if you've got a business problem, rather, you've got a people problem.
Exactly right.
It's just that simple, really, isn't it?
I think in law.
Yeah. And so how do you help law firms then strike the balance between cutting costs and investing in growth? Because that is it's certainly a challenge that I see, I think, for firms that are, between say 50 and 250 employees.
Yeah.
Their brands, aren't, they're still competing with trying to get the best talent in the world. They don't necessarily have, top budgets to pay huge salaries. So they got to make sure that, their costing is right, but at the
Mm.
same time they need to invest in growth. So
Yeah.
how do they find that balance? You think, what's your advice on that?
Do you know, it's a tricky one actually, Andre. I mean, I'll tell you a little story, which is that, and I'm very honest about this. I sold my firm at the end of 21. And unfortunately, it had a sticky end. I mean, that's public record, largely because the new owner did not understand this balance between investment and cost. And she came in and I hope she isn't watching this, but she came in and started cutting cost. And that isn't the way you do it. It's all about people. If you're investing, people see that you're investing in them. You're investing in them ultimately and getting it right for them, and they will thrive. And the opposite happened in the firm long after I sold it. But that is an example of what can happen and when it goes badly wrong. And my advice to firms is look at the ROI. They don't do their homework. Look at the ROI, do your homework, shop around. It's easy to cut cost when you're not busy, but actually it's a bit like networking. You should be investing in networking, money, doing stuff, etc. Both when you're not busy and when you are busy. So you see the return later. People think, oh, I'm not busy, I'm suddenly going to cut costs. No, that's the opposite of what you should do. You should be increasing your costs so that things happen and waterfalls start happening at the right time. And what I see in a lot of firms is, coming back to that point about agility, they're not agile. I mean, even when I pitch to firms for my workshop, I often see it go through this person, then it goes to the senior partner, then it goes to the managing partner, then it goes to learning and development, then it goes back to HR. Not only, one, how much bloody time is that taking up, coming back to your point about inefficiency,
Sure.
but two, it means that they're not getting the best results from potential investment in their firm because their structure of actually sitting down and looking at these things isn't right in the first place. I bet.
Yeah.
So be agile, be efficient. Think about what people in the firm actually need. Go and interview them and say, look, do you want training on diversity again for the 1 millionth time this year? I know diversity is important. I'm not saying that. We know it is. I mean, look at our colours. So of course it's important. Or would you rather training on rainmaking or how to have a really involving discussion with confidence with your client, or negotiation skills, or mediation skills, or commerciality, or Jay's workshop, or whatever. So think about what people actually need rather than just, I think, singing to the crowd when they're not even singing the same song back at you. I just don't think that makes any sense at all. So think about people's needs, and it comes back to what you were saying earlier. Think about what your people want, because then they will be happy and they will stay with you. And if you're not giving them that, then they won't.
Well, I have the conversation quite a lot with managing partners and HR directors about this sorts of stuff. And it's like, okay, well, there's often a conversation, who comes first, the client or the employee? It's not a chicken or egg situation. Well, I feel that if you put your people first, then everything flows from there. Happy people, happy clients. So I don't think it's a chicken or egg. I think that if you focus on making sure that the employee experience is great, and if you think about some of the best businesses in the world, Virgin,
Yeah.
for instance, Microsoft, these, that was the focus.
Exactly.
And if I think even about, some of the other law firms I think have done really well, amazingly well, like Meisen's, for example, they were a high street firm that decided to put people at the forefront of their growth.
Yeah.
And now, they're a multi-million-pound business, 150 people, and growing continuously, and everybody wants to work there, really high retention rates, etc. So it's proven, right? It's proven.
Because people are everything. As you said right at the outset, people are everything. And I was very conscious of that when I was running my law firms. My staff were everything. And that, again, two sides of the coin. They were everything in the sense I needed to keep them happy. I looked after them, had a lovely culture. You met a lot of my staff at the time, got on really, wonderful, lovely team, and they performed really well. And because they perform the work, they perform well, clients were happy, and therefore they were happy. So it goes around in a virtuous circle. But the other side of the coin, which is not often talked about, is if something goes wrong, for example, with client debt or whatever, it's their problem. It's their problems. They have to clear up their own mess at the end of that. You know, it comes with the quote, isn't it? With all the benefits comes a burden as well, doesn't it? At the end of the day, you know, with great power comes great responsibility, doesn't it?
That's right. Well, it's down to the point that you made earlier about delegation. You know, if you delegate, then they have to take ownership for what they're doing, right? So, you know, if shit hits the fan, they sort it.
Exactly. If they don't want to, you know that they want all the benefits, but they don't want the burden, and they're probably not the right person for that role or for that firm, for that matter.
Yeah. Interesting. And so, you know, now you've made the move to be a consultant. How are you finding it in a nutshell?
Oh, I love it. Absolutely love it. Yeah, I love seeing, you know, even that comment from that client this morning where, you know, just buoys me, where he said, you know, we talk about, it's so funny. He said, we talk about your triangle. I talk a lot about PITA clients, PITA, pain in the arse client. Triangle, PITA clients, your estimating tools, and I talk about push and tell, getting through the work, push and tell. He said, we talk about those on the hour, almost every hour. And that's why I do what I do, not because it's kudos to me, but because I love seeing the changes in the firms that I'm training. Because as I said, there is a massive gap in learning this stuff. We're just not taught this stuff at all. So that's why I started doing what I'm doing. So to fill this gap, fill this lacuna, go and train firms properly to make sure they're not only making more money, but providing exceptional client care, keeping their staff happy, and the morale is good, the teamwork's good, and they're thriving the best that they can be.
Yeah. So could you give me a story of where you've taken a firm from, you know, zero to hero, if you like?
A good one, actually, is that I was with a firm, this must have been last July now, Andre, where I went into a firm and they were actually having really quite serious financial problems. They're saying our cash flow is appalling. What do we do about it? And again, coming back to my thing, everything is interrelated. It wasn't just about the cash flow. It was about the people and the pricing and how they were taking payments and dealing with clients and the sort of work they were doing and their value and differentiation. So we actually lifted up the floorboards. I did a workshop and some mentoring with them. So I looked at their pricing went up. We started taking payments up front, and either less now, more later. I talk about that a lot. Take, you know, 5K now, but if you're going to wait for it, 6K later. We looked at their time recording, their efficiency, just in the way that we've been talking about earlier. Getting on with the work, telling the client that you're doing the work, so you're not running around like birds fly. We did the TPDO, BCDE, FFBV. We did all of that, looking at the. We looked at this is how we work, so we implemented that in the firm. We implemented my triangles, estimating, scoping, and that was a big thing. They were often going over the scope of their estimate and doing nothing about it. So taught them proper scoping, proper estimates, pitching properly in the first place. And on the back of that, there were a team of 9. In the 6 months, this is their figures. In the 6 months after the training, they made an extra £398,000.
Fantastic.
So and that was cash. That was cash, because I always say billing is nothing without cash. Anybody can bill 50 grand a month. You're not getting the cash in, so what? And that was cash, which meant that their cash flow woes disappeared. And they call me regularly and say to me, look, I can sleep at night now because our cash flow problems have gone. And again, it's tracing that cash flow issue back to all the other stuff and addressing it all at the same time. And that is, you know, I'm amazed and just so gratified to see them doing really well, because it's the personal side. They, you know, one of them was crying to me the other day and saying, our cash flow sorted now, so we sleep at night, whereas we didn't do that before. And that's why I do what I do.
Come on, that's fantastic, Jay. Well done. It's testament to the good work that you've been doing over the years. I would have thought, even as a equity partner, and etc. So that's great. And so look, if anybody wanted to get hold of you, want to learn more about your training, how can they do that?
Lots of ways. So look at my website, which is www.masala.mentor.co.uk. So Masala Mentor UK. I'm very on LinkedIn, as you know. So have a look at my LinkedIn profile. All my details are on one or the other, and email me, jay@masalamentor.co.uk. So please reach out. You know, don't. This is a problem with law firms. They think, oh, we can't. You know, we're not sure what to do, or it's going to be too expensive, or the other end is, well, we know what we're doing anyway. We're perfect. We know no law firm is perfect.
No,
most of them
is perfect.
nobody's, and this is the point. Know what your lacunas are, where your gaps are, we come back to gaps again, and reach out. If you honestly reach out if you need help. I've been there and done that. I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Not arrogantly, but I love helping firms. So reach out if you need help. Please do.
Good. Well, look, it's a pleasure speaking with you. I
And
look
you.
forward to catching up with you again soon.
And
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you so much. Thanks for the opportunity.
No worries. Take care.
Take care. Thanks.
Bye. Good.